Coming up on this episode of the Hockey Nuts, Steve and I get you caught up with all the news of the past week around the hockey world. The final 16 playoff teams are starting to come into focus. A few teams have officially punched their playoff tickets, while a few others have already been mathematically eliminated. College hockey is entering its last and biggest tournament of the season. We'll have the details of all this, plus the Minor League Hockey Minute, the NCAA Hockey Minute, and our picks of the week coming up next. This is the Hockey Nuts Podcast, Season 2, Episode 29, recorded on Wednesday, March 21st, 2018. Clinches and Eliminations.
Shut up and sit down.
Winberg runs out of room because Carlo makes the check. Donato 2-on-2. The trailer. Krug back to Donato. He scores! Ryan Donato's first goal as a Boston Bruin.
Away from Teuvo Teravainen. John Tavares by Williams, lifts it ahead, fielded by the Islanders' Aho. He dumps it in. Darling to the outside. Moved along by Van Riemsdyk. Williams feathers across for Fleury. He'll stick handle out. The Canes Aho pulls up. Defeated across. Broken up by Bailey. Van Riemsdyk with a shot. He scores! Trevor Van Riemsdyk right down Broadway here in Brooklyn. And the Canes recapture a 4-3 lead.
Veteran star blue liner of the Penguins. That's pretty good stuff right there. That turn away again. Takes a lot of composure. That's the future in New York. And here comes Kreider. What a game for Kreider with 3 points. Puts on the break. Zibanejad. Shot scores! Game winner! Mika Zibanejad!
Hello and welcome to episode 29 of the Hockey Nuts Podcast. My name's Wayne. I'm here with Steve once again this week. How's it going this week, Steve?
Hey, Wayne. Good evening to you. How are you doing?
Good. Good. It's been
Another week to get together and talk about hockey.
That's right. It's been a
Can't go wrong.
Busy week for everybody involved.
Yeah.
So we're back at it this week. We're back at it. Today is March 21st. It's a Wednesday night, so we're hitting it a little bit early this week. But we wanted to get it out of the way, so here we are.
Yeah.
So we've had, 6 days, 7 days, 6 days worth of stuff to go down?
6 days. Six days worth of action to talk about. And, of course, got a lot of, there's really quite a bit that's happened. If you consider some of the things that have gone on. College hockey's heating up.
Yep.
And
GM
meetings in Florida.
Teams are dropping like flies in the NHL. I'm surprised at how many teams have fallen off. So
yeah,
let's get into it. First things first, we got to talk about our 3 teams that we follow, and let's get the Carolina Hurricanes out of the way. Speaking of teams that are falling off, they are falling like a rock through the standings right now. They're currently. Well, I think their place in the standings is pretty much the same, but they're falling further and further behind all the other teams that are trying to make a playoff push. Hurricanes have had 3 games since we last went live with the podcast, and 2 losses and a win. And the one win was against a team who's probably one of the few teams that's doing even worse than them. So going back to the 17th, the Hurricanes had a 4-2 loss against Philadelphia, and that was a home game. That was a must-win for them if they had any hopes of making the playoffs, and they couldn't pull that one out. And then after that, they went up to the Island and played the Islanders, beat them 4-3. But then again, everybody's beating the Islanders these days.
Yeah, the Islanders are not playing well at all.
Yep.
They might be playing worse than us.
Yeah, I know that hurts your feelings.
Oh, no, I actually, the team I'd rather see in that position is the Devils, but I won't say any more.
Yeah. And then the third game this week was a 7-3 loss against Edmonton last night. I was unable to see any of these games this week just due to work schedules, and I've taken up some additional reffing games, so I've been at my local rink here quite a bit this week, in addition to working a full-time job. So I didn't get a chance really to see any of these in full, but I did watch highlights of all three, and the game against Edmonton last night was a bit kind of just a microcosm of the whole season for the Hurricanes. They gave up 7 goals. I can't really say it was goaltending, although there were a couple there that maybe Darling could have wanted to have a second chance at stopping again. But the defense, the overall team defense, they're just leaving teams, players wide open in front of Darling and in front of Cam Ward. So
right.
The opposing teams are getting a lot of really good quality chances against the Hurricanes these days. And yeah, goaltending is an issue with that team, but I don't think that's all of it. I think there's an overall team defense issue going on there. So I don't know what your thoughts are.
Well, my thoughts rather than here's my thoughts about it. Carolina is roughly 6 to 8 points behind being in the thick of it, where we said they'd be to get in the playoffs.
Yep.
They're I would say 7 points go in between. 80 points. If they were at 80 points right now, they would be in the thick of it. I would be saying that they're going to make it, not Florida. And so they've fallen short. And it hasn't happened in the last month's time. It's happened in the last week or two.
Yeah. Because probably 2 weeks ago, they were only 4 points out of a playoff spot.
Right. And 4 points versus 2 points out.
Now they're 9.
It's a game. Now they're 9 points out, and they're not going to make it. They're not going to make it. I said last week I held on to some hope, but they're not going to make the playoffs.
Nope.
They're going to come very close. They're going to come. They basically got into the month of March and were right in the thick of it and could have made the playoffs. Now I know Bill Peters has had news conferences and talked about inconsistency and problems with the team and et cetera, et cetera. And there's been some change with the new ownership and that. But my feeling is that Carolina they were closer this year than they have been the last 2 years. And if you want to look, I look at that game we played against them this past week. We were in control of that game most of the way through. They really weren't in that game.
Yep.
They played decently well, but look at our team in the last really since January, since we won the Winter Classic, we've been terrible. And you would think that they would be in that game at least. I could see them losing and dropping a contest to us, but they really weren't in that game. So I don't know if you can attribute that to fatigue or if you can attribute that to what's going on with Ron Francis is no longer changes within the organization, whether it's ownership or management or whatever.
Yep.
There's some things you can see that's going on with that team.
Yep.
But
well, on the surface, in my mind, there's 3 primary things that need to be fixed before this team will be able to be considered any kind of playoff contender, never mind a Stanley Cup contender. Number 1, they got to fix the goalie issues. Number 2, they need a number 1 center. And obviously the third thing is they got to figure out how to play well defensively as a team. I can't say get a bunch of new defensemen, because they've got some really good prospect defensemen out there.
Right.
And, let's fast forward a couple months here and we get to the draft lottery. Let's say they do win the draft lottery, because they'll be in the drawing.
Right.
Being a team on the outside looking in. And they get Rasmus Dahlin, who's also a defenseman. They're adding yet another defenseman to their team that's already chock full of young defensemen.
Right.
Because, if you win the lottery, you got to pick Dahlin, unless they trade down.
Right.
At some point, these guys got to start coming together and start playing like NHL defensemen at some point.
Right.
So, and we thought this year would be the year. Obviously, it hasn't turned out to be the case.
But it's very, very close.
Yep. And the other big thing
to say is it's not like they got to go leaps and bounds. I mean, it's disappointing. It's got to be frustrating that they're this close.
Yep.
And the wagon wheels fell off.
And the other major thing that I see that is a problem with the Hurricanes is they're just, and it alludes to the number one center problem, is they're just flat out not scoring enough goals.
Right.
They just don't have enough offensive firepower or offensive depth. So it should be interesting to see what they do this summer. They're going to get their GM thing hired, I'm sure, before the draft at least. And then we'll figure out from there what they're going to do. But I expect that team to be very active this summer with not only trades, but possibly free agent signings. Because I expect that the new owner of the team is no longer going to hold this team down to a budget that is well below the salary cap. So you're going to see this team be active on the free agent market. It'll be fun to watch for sure. And with that in mind, speaking of teams that are going to be active at the free agent market, the Rangers always are.
Yeah.
How have their week gone?
They are, and we played based on the changes that have taken place, and based on the performance of the team in the past. They didn't have that bad of a week. It could have been better, but they didn't have that bad of a week. They were in every contest. Could have won all three of those games that we're talking about. Last night's loss was particularly frustrating for me, but I'll get into that in a minute. We lost. We won against Pittsburgh in overtime, and really played exceptionally well in that game. I was very pleased with the play as a whole of our team, and we won that game in overtime. It was a exciting, thrilling game. I don't know if you had a chance to watch that, but I was particularly impressed with the play of Neil Pionk and Ryan Spooner. Both of them are really gelling as Rangers. Pionk, of course, came up from Hartford, but he's had 7. I think he's got a 5-game point streak going. All of his points are assists, but he's playing very well with getting the puck up the ice, making good passes. I know that sounds like hockey 1, 2, 3 ABCs of hockey, but we've had problems with even that kind of stuff. So. He's doing well. The game that I felt we should have won against St. Louis, played well against them, came back and tied the game at 3-3. It went into overtime and they won. We had our chances in that game. We could not put the puck in the back of the net there late in the game, and we had some golden opportunities and didn't win. Frustrating loss, but we got a point out of that game. And then we get to last night's game against the Columbus Blue Jackets. Did you watch that game at all?
No, I had to referee after work last night, so I didn't see any games last night.
Well, I tell you, it's one of those games where Columbus scored a couple of goals, and then we scored. And then they scored, and then we scored a couple goals. We got back into the game, and actually, I thought had a very good chance to win it. And what happened was Henrik, this is, I'm going to say, there was probably 6 or 7 minutes to go in the game. There was a shot on net, and the puck went underneath Henrik's pads and his leg. He actually looked around, saw that he had control of the puck, and was waiting for a whistle. And for a brief second there, I guess he stopped. He lost his focus and stopped because I guess he thought the ref was going to stop play.
Oh, yeah, I think I saw that on the highlights, yeah.
That didn't happen.
The puck scored it through, yeah.
Although it should have, but it didn't happen. And I don't know if it was Artemi Panarin, but one of the Blue Jackets got the puck, picked it up, and flipped it into the net, and they scored. That goal really hurt. Yep. Because that goal should not have been a goal. The outcome probably would have been a 3-3 tie. Because you can't count the empty netter at the end of the game. Here we are trying to score in the closing seconds of the game to tie the thing up. Yep. So it would have been a 3-3 game. And of course that empty net goal was made possible because the Columbus player flipped the puck over the clearly when they show the replay. He flipped the puck right up over the glass, and it should have been a delay of game. That was never called. Of course, you can't challenge something like that.
No. Nope.
So no way to stop that either. The Rangers should have been on the power play until the end of the game.
Yep.
But that didn't happen. So some frustrating things there at the end of the game that cost us. It seems to have happened rather frequently this year.
Yep.
But those are the types of things, breaks go your way, and sometimes they don't.
Yep.
They haven't gone our way this year.
Nope.
So,
no, they haven't.
Yeah.
No, a year makes a big difference from one year to the next. There's a lot of teams that have swung in both directions.
Right.
I mean, yeah. All right. Well, the Bruins, on the other hand, they had 3 games as well since we last recorded. They got a 3-0 loss at Florida. Now, the Bruins overall have not been playing all that great of late, with the exception of one game, and that was the Tampa Bay game. The rest of the games, the Bruins have been kind of, in my mind, I think it's more just lackadaisical, because they're kind of settled into that second spot in the standings. Yeah, it'd be great to get past Tampa Bay, but it's not really necessary, and it doesn't look like they're going to drop. Right, you want to get home ice, and they'll have it even if they don't pass Tampa Bay and they stay in that number 2 spot. They'll have it at least in the first round anyway.
Right.
But it just seems like defensively, there's been a lot of lapses recently with the Bruins. And that was essentially the case in Florida. And of course, they didn't score any goals either, so that didn't help. So they ended up losing 3-0 against Florida on the 15th. And then they went across the state of Florida and beat Tampa Bay in their building 3-0. For the second time this year, they've beat Tampa Bay. So they still got 2 more games against Tampa, 3 more against Florida to finish out the season. But right now, they hold the tiebreak against Tampa. So if they can at least get into a tie with Tampa in the standings, they would own the tiebreak, at least on the head-to-head anyway. So they go across the state, beat Tampa 3-0. That was a nice win for them. Just an all-around great game played. They played well defensively. They were engaged. They were focused. They were in it, contrary to what took place in Florida, where they just seemed to be lackadaisical, disengaged, and so on and so on. And then the game against Columbus, that kind of was a wild game. But the headline out of that game was the rookie Ryan Donato getting 3 points in his NHL debut, a goal and 2 assists.
Right.
Which we'll talk about him in a few minutes when we get to the details of his signing. So all in all, just kind of an up and down week for the Bruins, but they're still rolling right along. They got 3 out of a possible 6 points on the week, and they're still right in there. They're 4 or 5 points back right now, with a couple games in hand on Tampa. So yeah, I mean they're pretty much where they've been, and it's kind of status quo at this point. At this point, all the Bruins fans are waiting for is to get all the injury-riddled players back. Looks like Bergeron's getting close to coming back, and they're trying to keep everybody who's not hurt, trying to keep them healthy, and trying to get the guys that are back, get them back out on the ice. Everybody's waiting for McAvoy, Bergeron, and in particular those 2. Chara, who's kind of been a bit banged up of late, waiting to make sure that he is healthy going into the playoffs, and so on and so on. So yeah, just kind of a quiet week overall for the Bruins.
Right.
Let's take a look at the standings real quick, because we're getting down there. There's less than 10 games left in the season for most teams.
Right.
So looking at the East first, starting with the Metro Division right now, in first is Washington with 91, Pittsburgh with 87, Columbus tied with them with 87. But Pittsburgh has a game in hand on Columbus, so they technically are in the second spot because of that.
Now, they said something during last night's game, too. Columbus won 9 in a row now?
Yep, they've won 9 in a row. They're 9-1 in their last 10.
And, I mean, they did not play like a 9 in a row type team last night.
No,
they were fortunate to get out of our building with
the win.
Points.
Yeah, but they've been playing very, very well. Outside of that game against the Rangers, they've been playing very, very well of late. I mean, they're scoring a lot of goals, and they're not. Bobrovsky's back to his regular form. He's playing very well. So, Columbus is looking like a dangerous team, and they've managed to tie Pittsburgh and knock Philadelphia out of that third spot. So Columbus now holds that third spot in the Metro. Philadelphia has dropped to a wild card. They hold the first wild card at 86 points. So,
I don't think there's any doubt, though. I'm going to go ahead and go out on the line. Philadelphia's going to make the playoffs.
Oh, yeah, I think so.
They're going to make.
They're still 5 points up on Florida.
Right.
However, and we'll get to Florida in a second. There's some games in hand issue there that may cause problems for both Philadelphia and New Jersey, who are both holding that wild card. But the Atlantic, the top three is Tampa Bay. They're at 104, and they've actually clinched a playoff spot already, officially. And then Boston is second with 99, and they can clinch a playoff spot with a win tonight. Actually, they only need 1 point to clinch his playoff spot. So a win or an overtime loss tonight, and Boston clinches their playoff spot. And then in third place, Toronto with 93 points. And Philadelphia, New Jersey each hold the wild cards. Philadelphia is at 86. New Jersey at 82, and Florida is at 81. However, Florida has 2 games in hand on New Jersey, and they're only a point back in New Jersey, and they have 3 games in hand on Philadelphia, and they're 5 points back behind them. So right now, the way I see it, and everybody else in the East that below Florida, they're way out. Like Carolina's the next team behind Florida, and they are 8 points behind Florida. So everybody else is out. They're done.
Right.
So right now, I see the East looking pretty much as a 9-team race for 8 spots.
Right.
And a couple of the spots have already been locked up pretty much. So out of, we can agree you've got Pittsburgh, Columbus, Philadelphia, New Jersey, and Florida. 5 teams right there that are pretty within 6 points of each other in the standings.
Right.
5 of those 6 teams are going to make the playoffs. In your mind, which of the 6 teams is not going to make it?
Well, as I've said all season long, I don't think New Jersey. I think New Jersey has played way above where. I mean, they've had a great season. They've played head and shoulders above where I think they are talent-wise. Mm-hmm. I really don't think they have. If you wrote 4 lines down on a piece of paper and you put those 4 lines against any of those other teams, including Philadelphia, Columbus, they are outmatched, in my opinion, in talent. They've played very well. Corey Schneider's had a great year, and they've ridden. Nico Hischier's had a very good rookie season. But Taylor Hall, I mean, he's been the reason. A major part.
Yep.
Of their resurgence this year.
Yep.
Okay. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. I think the Devils are going to fall and Florida's going to pull ahead of them. I think if Philadelphia, they have 8 games left. If they get 8 points, they're in. That's how I see it. 94 points is probably going to be what gets you in. Yep. Maybe 93, but 94 is going to do it. I don't think the Devils are going to get 94 points. I just don't think they will. Not the way they're playing.
Yeah, they're 4-6 in their last 10. They've lost 2 in a row.
Yep.
So I tend to agree with you.
Florida's got to come up with 13 points in 11 games.
Yep.
So I think they will. And I think they're going to pass the Devils. I don't think they're going to pass Philadelphia. I think Philadelphia. I mean, it might be close. They might be a point or 2.
Yep.
But
I could actually see Florida actually pass both New Jersey and Philadelphia and end up in that 1 wild card, and that leaves New Jersey out. So either way, New Jersey falls out, but I think Philadelphia ends up with that bottom wild card. And as much as I'd like to see it, I don't see it happening. I don't care how it happens, but I really, really want to see Pittsburgh play Philadelphia in the first round of the playoffs. I want to see that series.
Yeah. That always is a good one, too, isn't it?
Yep.
And
I want to see those teams beating up on each other for 7 games.
Yeah. Oh, you know where I stand on things. I lose no sleep, and it doesn't bother me. I sleep like a baby watching the Devils fall. So, that's the way I see it. And I'm biased, and I'm a Rangers fan, and et cetera. I admit it. So,
yep.
That's how I see it. I think it's going to be 94 points to get in, and I see Philadelphia and Florida as being the 2 teams getting in.
Yep. Yeah, I tend to agree. And it's crazy how the East has just become so clear in the last couple of weeks of which teams are getting in and which ones are not.
Right.
That it's down to already just a 9-team race for 8 spots, and everybody and a whole slew of teams that are clearly out and not have any chance of getting back in. Now the West, on the other hand, is not so clear. I see it as 12 teams fighting for 8 playoff spots. Or 11 teams, sorry.
11 teams. That's
11
right.
teams. I miscounted. 11 teams fighting for 8 playoff spots. So in the West, you have, in the Central Division, you have Nashville in first place. They have already clinched. They're at 106. Winnipeg is at 98, and Minnesota is at 90. In the Pacific, your top 3 are Vegas with 99, and they are on the verge of clinching, which is amazing to have that happen in year 1. And San Jose is in second with 91, and LA is in third with 87.
Right.
And right now, the 2 wild card is Colorado, who's been very hot of late. Anaheim, Colorado is 88, Anaheim with 86. Dallas is the 9th place team, or just on the outside looking in, at 84. St. Louis at 83, and Calgary at 80. And everybody else is done.
Yeah.
And St. Louis has kind of been sputtering the last couple of weeks. Calgary hasn't been playing well, and Dallas has been horrible the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
So right now there's a gap starting to separate between 8 and 9. And to me, it's looking as though, unless some things turn around, unless some things change, right now it's looking like the teams that are in there in the West are going to be the ones that are going to finish in there.
Yeah.
In what order, we don't know. It's pretty close, but I don't see Dallas, St. Louis, or Calgary coming back to get in unless they turn their fortunes around. Now St. Louis has won their last 2, but they
could very easily lost to us.
Yeah,
we had them on the ropes, had them beat, and they pulled out that overtime goal.
Yeah,
and
they are 5-4-1 in their last 10. So before these 2 wins that they've gotten, they weren't playing well. And right. St. Louis has got to play Boston tonight. Now, it is in their building, but Boston's no slouch of a team. They've been playing very well. So
yeah.
So and Dallas, I don't know what's been going on with them, and then Ben Bishop is now hurt, so that makes it even worse.
Yeah, I think, Wayne, it's going to be a monumental task and I'm surprised about this. But it's going to be a monumental task for the Calgary Flames to make it.
Yeah, they're 6 points out right now.
And they've only got 8 games left to play.
Yeah.
So they have to basically, to get in here, it's going to be 96 maybe, 97 points.
Maybe, yep.
Maybe even 98 points. And if you take it, let's split the needle on that, and it's 97 points. Calgary can't get in at that. If it's 97, they're out. Even if they run the table and win the rest of their games.
Yeah, they've only got 8 games left, so the best they can do is 96.
So basically, Calgary cannot afford to lose any games, in my opinion.
Yep, I think
we
you're
come
right.
back next week and they've lost a game or 2, I think you can put a fork in them.
Yep.
They're dorming. And then you look at St. Louis, they've got 10
games left.
Right. They got two extra games, and they got to win those games.
Yep.
When I watched the game the other night, both announcers on more than one occasion were talking about how important it was not to lose the game against the Rangers.
Yep.
Because that's a team they should beat. They're headed to the playoffs. They can't afford to give up those points. And they've won their last 2, but it's been close. So,
Yep. Yeah, and you're right. I think they're in a situation, and I think if you look at the schedule, with this being Wednesday night, there's only 4 games tonight on the NHL schedule. St. Louis is one of them. They're playing Boston. I would be willing to bet that is one of the 2 games in hand that St. Louis has. That's a tall task to come up against a very hot Boston team and try to win. But it's a game they're going to need.
Absolutely right.
So they've got to find a way to win it and hope that Boston comes in and lays an egg like they actually have been quite a bit lately. So yeah, the West is a little bit tighter than the East, but some teams are starting to emerge, or more likely, some teams are starting to fall off out there in the West. So it's getting down to it. And I think what we thought we'd be going into the final week of the regular season with, a whole bunch of teams still having a shot at making the playoffs. Now it's beginning to look like there's going to be little to play for that final week of the regular season.
Oh yeah, I couldn't have said it any better.
So you're going to have, if that is the case, where teams are locked into their position. Once every team is locked into that spot, knowing that they can't go up or down in the standings at all, you're going to start to see star players sitting all over the place. And, that'll make the games even more unpredictable, because all the playoff bound teams are going to be sitting their star players against the teams that are not headed to playoffs.
Right.
So
I agree. And one last thing here. I think we're looking at 10 teams in the West, 9 in the East. I think that's a fair way to look at it.
Yep.
I mean, you could say that Calgary's on life support.
Yep.
But and they could win the rest of their games and then get in. But I think you come to the last week of the season, Wayne, and it might even shave another team off in the West there.
Oh yeah.
You get down to just one team in each conference that has a chance, which we didn't think that would happen at all.
Nope. For a while, it seemed it was going to be a lot closer than that.
Yep.
So I guess that'll make our jobs a little bit easier. We can start looking more forward to playoffs, right?
That's right.
The Hockey Nuts podcast can be found on major podcast search engines like Apple Podcasts and Google Play Music. Just search for the term The Hockey Nuts in whatever app you use to get podcasts. We can also be found at thehockeywriters.com on their podcast page. Thehockeywriters.com is a great place to get more stories and content about our favorite sport. We love listener involvement, and there are a few ways you can get involved with the show. You can email the show at feedback@thehockeyknuts.com, or you can leave us a voicemail in our mailbox at 919-960-1718. You can also tweet us. I'm at Wayne Halley 9. Steve is at sball504man. Also, be sure to visit our website at thehockeyknuts.com. There you can see all of our past episodes archived, and you can listen to the show through your web browser on that site. As always, links and stories that we mention in the show are available in the show notes for this episode. In addition to our website, you can also watch us record the show each week live on YouTube. We generally record on Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday nights, depending on our work schedules. You can find our YouTube channel at thehockeyknuts.com/YouTube. The show is a hobby and a labor of love for us, but the production of it is not free. To help us offset the cost of producing the show, we've set up various affiliate links on our webpage at thehockeyknuts.com. The affiliate links allow you to help financially support our podcast without costing you any more money out of pocket. Some of the affiliate relationships we have are with Amazon, hockeymonkey.com, Ting.com. If you use any of these services, we'd greatly appreciate it if you use our affiliate links to those sites. Simply go to thehockeyknuts.com and click on the appropriate advertising banner on the right. Your purchase will not cost you anything extra, and a small portion of your purchase will come back to help support the show. And we thank you very much. Now, back to the show. So, all right. Well, that's pretty much it for the general, standings and scores and that kind of stuff. Let's get into some of the stories going on around the league. And obviously, we're going to start with transactions, and we actually had one this week. You wouldn't think that after the trade deadline, there'd be many transactions, but every week we seem to have one or two. Last week, we had a couple concerning some front office staff. This week, we actually have a player transaction. Ryan Donato signed a 2-year entry-level contract with the Boston Bruins on Sunday. The 21-year-old forward will join the Bruins in Boston and is eligible to play against the Columbus Blue Jackets at TD Garden on Monday, in which, in fact, he did. He got a goal and 2 assists in that game. Donato, who was selected by the Bruins in the second round of the 2014 NHL Draft, completed his junior season at Harvard University on Friday with a loss to Clarkson in the ECAC semifinal. He led Harvard with 26 goals and 43 points in 29 games, was the ECAC Player of the Year, and is a finalist for the Hobey Baker Award as the top player in NCAA Division I men's hockey. Donato, 6'1", 190 pounds, played for the U.S. at the 2018 Pyeongchang Olympics, when he tied for the most goals in the tournament with 5 in 5 games, and his 6 points led the American squad. So, I didn't get a chance to see this game in full because, again, I was refereeing at the time. But when I saw that the Bruins had signed him, I was thinking, and I think I've even made comments a couple of times on the podcast, that I didn't think that he would come back or he would come to the Bruins this year. I thought he'd go back to Harvard for his senior season for a couple of reasons. Number one, who leaves Harvard education behind unfinished? Number two, right. His dad's the head coach of the hockey team.
Right.
So
now he's a junior, right?
He's a junior. He still has one more year, at least of. I don't know where he's at in his schooling, but as far as his playing eligibility, he would have had one more year had he stayed in school. Now, the stories coming out about him is he's actually still living in his dorm at Harvard, and he's coming. He's going with the Bruins. Well, it was a home game, the one that he played in. And then after the game, he went back to his dorm at Harvard and he went to class the next day. So, it's convenient that he's playing for the Bruins because, Harvard's right there in Boston. He can stay in school to some extent while he continues playing for the Bruins. So in that sense, he can go ahead and continue taking classes. I don't see why not. I was excited when I saw this because Donato's a very good player, and I've been very excited for his arrival in Boston. I just didn't think it would happen until next year. Now, the one thing that I've still yet to research and figure out is what are the implications of this contract that he just signed. Number one, it's only a 2-year, and high-end draft picks usually sign a 3-year entry level, and this year is year 1 of that 2 years, so he's only signed through next season, and then he's a restricted free agent after that. So can he sign a big boy contract after that, or because he's got less than 2 years of, I don't know how the entry level deals work, if they can sign another entry level deal on him. Someone could tell me the rules. You saved me the work of looking it up, but I know for a fact he'll be a restricted free agent at the end of this contract, at the end of next season.
Right.
But the question is, how much cap hell are the Bruins going to be in if at the end of next season they have to sign him to a multi-million-dollar deal,
right,
rather than another entry-level contract? So I'm not sure how that's going to end up working out for either side, Donato or the Bruins. So I guess we'll wait to see on that. But for now, that adds another very skilled forward to the Bruins for their playoff run, and man, are the Bruins deep going into the playoffs. It's one of those. It's one of those situations. They've got multiple players at every position that they can call on to step in if somebody gets hurt. And in the playoffs, you need that kind of thing. You need, they got killed last year in the playoffs. They lost their first round series against Ottawa because they didn't have enough depth at defense. When they lost 4 defensemen, they were basically playing American Hockey League defensemen in that 5 and 6 role at defense, and it cost them the series. They just couldn't. Right. They just couldn't overcome that. And so they've clearly solved that because they've got 9 NHL-ready defensemen on the roster. Now they've got basically an extra forward line. If you talk about Wingles and Rick Nash and Ryan Donato, there might be 1 or 2 others that they've brought in late in the season here, added to the team. They basically have an extra line of forwards that they can call on when players get hurt. It's not a matter of if, it's when players get hurt in the playoffs.
Right, very true.
So that makes me think that it's going to be a fun playoff year for the Bruins. It allows them to be a little bit more physical, a little bit more aggressive, knowing that that their team isn't so fragile that if they lose one guy, that's going to be it for their playoff series. They can afford to lose 1 or 2 guys due to injury and still continue to play at a high level with all the depth that they've accumulated.
Right.
So makes me excited.
Wayne, your team's playing very well.
I missed out pretty much on last year because the Bruins postseason run was so short. This year I'm hoping it lasts a little bit longer than one round.
Yeah.
No matter who they end up facing.
Right.
Right now it's looking like Toronto, but who knows? If they can overtake Tampa Bay, they would end up playing one of the wild cards.
Right.
So, all right. Moving on. That was the only transaction I saw this week.
Yeah, that's the only one and be honest with you, I didn't know about it till you texted me a couple nights ago. I heard it went down on the replays. Yep. Other than that, I haven't seen anything.
All right, let's move on to injuries then. Been a few, even though it's only been a few days. There's been quite a few. Starting with Ben Bishop, he'll be out 2 weeks for the Dallas Stars after re-injuring his left knee on Sunday in a 4-2 loss to the Jets at Bell MTS Place. The goaltender stopped all 3 shots he faced, left the game at 10-11 of the first period after appearing to injure his left knee, making a glove save on Brian Little. Bishop, who's 26-17-5, 2.49 goals against average, .916 save percentage, first injured the knee in a 2-0 loss against the Nashville Predators on March 6th, and missed 5 games. He returned to the Stars lineup, a 3-2 overtime loss against the Senators on March 16th, and Sunday was only his second game back. Kari Lehtinen, who replaced Bishop on Sunday, started all 5 games in Bishop's most recent absence and was 1-3-1. The Stars recalled forward Chris McKenzie and goalie Mike McKenna from Texas of the American Hockey League on Monday. McKenzie is 15-9-4 with 2.69 goals against average and .907 save percentage in 30 AHL appearances. So it looks like Bishop will be out for a couple of weeks. I think it's probably one of the final nails in the coffin for the Dallas Stars, in my mind.
No, I agree with you. That to me, if you took those three teams, Calgary, St. Louis, and Dallas, the team that's gonna in my opinion is gonna be out of it is Dallas.
Yeah,
and that's why I'm holding off on saying Calgary is out of this because they could come on and win a few games and get something going. But I think Dallas, without Ben Bishop, and it looks like he's not going to be in for the rest of the season. That's I don't think that is a setback that I don't believe at this time in the season Dallas will overcome.
No, agreed. All right, we have a rare Carolina Hurricanes injury. Now, of all the problems that the Carolina Hurricanes have had this year, injuries really haven't been a lot of it. There haven't been a lot of injured players for the Hurricanes. But Noah Hannafin will be out indefinitely for the Carolina Hurricanes because of a concussion. 21-year-old defenseman left the third period of a 4-2 loss to the Flyers on Saturday and did not travel with the Hurricanes after their 4-3 win at the Islanders on Sunday. He has 29 points this season and hadn't missed a game prior to Sunday. And Hannafin is arguably the number one defenseman for the Hurricanes, certainly for the future.
Right.
He was a 5th overall draft pick in his draft year. Hurricanes had very high hopes for him, and he's kind of 29 points is not a real huge total for a defenseman, but at the same time, he's playing for a team that doesn't score a lot of goals, so. He was basically the power play quarterback of the team for most of the season, and in my mind is their best defenseman.
Mm-hmm.
So, but Hurricanes are already out, so there's no need to rush him back. I guess it is what it is.
It is what it is.
Might as well just let him sit until he's ready to go. Dmitry Kulikov has opted not to have surgery to correct a back injury. Winnipeg Jets coach Paul Maurice said on Monday. 27-year-old defenseman injured his back against the Devils on March 8th, a reoccurrence of an injury last season with the Sabres that limited him to 47 games after he was hit into an open door by Toronto Maple Leafs forward Colin Greening in a preseason game. Maurice said Saturday that Kulikov will have surgery soon, and it would be 8 weeks before any further update would be provided. However, after practice on Monday, Maurice said Kulikov decided on a different path to treat his injury. He had a couple of opinions on his injury, had met with surgeons, and it's never clearly one way or the other that he should go when he met for his final consult, and it's player's choice what he wants to do. He's going to forego surgery, Maurice said. There are other remedies for this, so he didn't have surgery today. Maurice said that the injury won't necessarily require surgery eventually. Kulikov has missed 5 games since the injury occurred. He has 11 points in 62 games. So I think we reported last week that he was going to go out for surgery.
Right.
So I guess that's not going to happen now.
Yep.
The back is just one of those things where it's a lot of people say once you have back surgery, your back's never the same.
Right. You're a different person.
Yep.
I agree with that.
Yep. So, and that's probably what's got Kulikov a little bit nervous is, you never know. That could cause more problems than fix if he has back surgery. All right. Michael Raffl will be out 2 weeks for the Flyers with an upper body injury. Forward left with a 6-3 win against the Washington Capitals on Sunday. At 14:46 of the second period, he has 19 points in 73 games. Raffl's a depth player for the Flyers. It stinks that he's going to be out. Looks like he'll be back for the playoffs, but he's not in a very high key role for the Flyers. Kind of a third, fourth line guy.
Right.
All right.
Agreed.
Kevin Bieksa will have surgery to remove scar tissue from his left hand on Friday, and the Ducks defenseman will be out 2 to 5 weeks. The Ducks hope to have Bieksa back for the playoffs, which begin April 11th. Bieksa has 8 assists and is averaging 18:01 of ice time in 59 games this season. Bieksa, who's 36, is in the final year of a 2-year contract extension. He signed on July 1 of 2015 and become an unrestricted free agent on July 1. He has 278 points in 808 NHL games over 13 seasons with the Ducks and the Canucks. Bieksa at this point in his career is a stay-at-home defenseman more than anything.
Right.
But he is a important one for the Ducks. They're going to need him back for the playoffs.
What number defenseman do you think he is for Anaheim?
He's like a 3-4.
Okay.
So he's getting not quite top pairing minutes, but he's getting plenty of ice time. They're using him in a shutdown role at this point in the season. At least that's what I see anyway.
Okay.
So, they're gonna need a guy like him. I mean, his injury is not gonna cost the Ducks a playoff spot. It's not that serious of a missing, but
they need him for a long playoff run.
But for a long playoff run, they're gonna need a guy like him. Yeah. All right. Malcolm Subban made 22 saves for the Vegas Golden Knights, taking over for Marc-Andre Fleury in a 4-1 win against the Canucks at T-Mobile Arena on Tuesday. Fleury made 7 saves in the first period, but did not start the second because of an undisclosed injury. He was hit in the mask by a Brandon Sutter shot 10 minutes into the first. Gallant confirmed the move to bring Subban was not to give Fleury a rest. Fleury has started 21 of the past 22 games. So I don't know if this is precautionary, but I'm thinking concussion here. If they think the shot is what caused the injury.
And, Wayne, it's strange, but let me tell you, this is how I see it. Vegas has got to have Marc-Andre Fleury in net. If they're going to go anywhere in the playoffs, I could see them losing in the first round, having this great season, and losing in the first round because they don't have their number one goalie in net. That's
Probably.
Just how it is.
Yep.
Because it ain't the regular season. We're going to throw everything out the window.
Yep.
When the playoffs start, that team, the Vegas Golden Knights, will be starting their first playoff game in their first. You might as well look at it that way.
0-0.
0-0. They've never been in the playoffs.
Yep.
As a team, and without your starting goalie, and they go up first round against, let's say they go up against the Colorado Avalanche.
Yep.
Which could very well happen.
Yep.
They could get their ass handed to them, and I'm not kidding. They could lose 4-1 or 4-2 in that series.
Yep.
Without Marc-Andre Fleury.
Yep. Yeah. And one thing that Vegas has been doing to win games is just simply outplaying and outworking their opponents. Just their whole overall team identity is it's a team full of guys playing with a chip on their shoulder because they were the guys that their previous team let go, the guys that the other teams didn't want.
Right.
So all year long, Vegas has been playing with that chip on their shoulder, like we're a bunch of scrubs that nobody wanted. We're going to show you that you shouldn't have let us go, right? This is the way they've been playing all year long. When the playoffs start, that is pretty much over because the intensity turns up several notches from all the teams. Every team is going to play hard, not just the Vegas Golden Knights going to play hard. Every team is going to show up to play every single night during the playoffs. And so that little advantage that Vegas has had by simply outworking other teams that weren't entirely mentally or physically ready to play on most nights, especially in Vegas. All that's out the window because once the playoffs start, everybody wants to win and everybody wants to play hard.
Yep.
So if they don't have Fleury,
if he has to go through the concussion protocol, let me tell you what, that's going to stink.
Yep.
If you're a Vegas Golden Knights fan, because you've got to rely on Malcolm Subban for you don't know how long.
Yep.
And he's got no playoff experience. I'm not knocking it. Malcolm Subban may play tremendous, but he's got to do it against a team like the Colorado Avalanche, who is playing very, very well.
Yep.
I would not want to play them in the first round without my starting goaltender.
Nope. No, that would be especially as hot as they've been lately. So that's a concerning injury for Vegas fans for sure. Yep. All right, let's move on to the Lightning. They suffered an injury to Ryan Callahan in last night's game. He will not accompany the team with their 2-game road trip after sustaining an upper body injury against the Toronto Maple Leafs on Tuesday. Callahan tangled with Toronto forward Josh Levo with 4 minutes left in the first period. He went to the dressing room holding his right shoulder and did not return. Lightning coach John Cooper said he was encouraged by Callahan's presence at practice on Wednesday, but that the 33-year-old forward needed more evaluation and would not travel for games at the New York Islanders on Thursday. So obviously it's not any broken shoulder, collarbone, clavicle, or anything like that because he was at practice on Wednesday. Mm-hmm. However, he's not healthy enough to play, so I'm thinking shoulder separation maybe? Or some sort of bruise?
Yep.
Yeah.
Could be.
So it doesn't look like it's going to be a long-term injury, but yeah, just another one of those nagging things that players deal with, I guess.
Oh yeah.
Throughout the season, and Tampa Bay is, there's no rush to get him back anyway. They're flying so high at the top of the standings right now. They're way ahead of everybody, so no rush to get him back. All right, Winnipeg Jets wing Patrick Laine left their game against the Kings on Tuesday with a lower body injury and did not return. Coach Paul Maurice said he does not think the injury is long-term, but fantasy owners of the elite goal scorer are awaiting a further update for purposes on the fantasy playoffs. Lane leads the league in goals, 18 in the last 16 games since February 16th.
Yep.
Basically has been neck and neck with Alex Ovechkin in goals for the whole season. He's got 43. Ovechkin's got 44, with each player having played 73 games. So I saw the play that they think, because nobody's confirming, and NHL Network kept playing the press conference with Paul Maurice, and he was kind of dodging the question. Like the reporters kept peppering him with questions about Lane this, Lane.
Yep.
And at one point he says, "Well, after the amputation, I think he should be come back in a couple of weeks." Just kind of making fun of how over the top the press was going about his. Basically what happened is Lane went to block a shot from the point, and he turned as the shot was coming, and the shot hit him in the back of the leg, basically right in the calf, just above where the top of the skate. So he clearly got hit in a spot that doesn't have any padding. Most players don't have any padding in the back of their leg.
Right.
That there's nothing but their hockey sock there, and under that is their leg. And he got hit right there. So it's probably some sort of muscle bruise there. That'll probably take anywhere from 4 to 10 days to get better, and he'll be back out on the ice. So at this point, Lane is pretty much day to day. If that play, and this is what all the press says, this is the play where he got hurt. If that's the play that he got hurt, then don't expect him out a long time. So he'll be back for the playoffs for sure. He may not win the goal title now.
Right. That's not a guy I'd want to be without either if I'm a Winnipeg Jets fan. So,
no.
But it's more promising there because you kind of have an idea for what it is.
Yeah.
In Fleury's case, we don't know. If it is concussion, that's serious.
You don't know. Yeah. With concussions, you don't know how long you'll be out.
Yeah.
With this one, if you're a hockey player and you've ever been hit in the back of the leg with a slap shot, you know how painful it is. But you also know that depending on how good a shape you're in and how quickly you heal, it's 4 days at the least to anywhere from 10 days, 12 days at the most if you really got hit hard, and you're kind of pretty much back to normal. It's just a muscle bruise.
Right.
He's probably got one hell of a mark on the back of his leg from where that puck hit him. But other than that, that's pretty much all it is. So nothing too serious. All right, St. Louis Blues right wing Vladimir Tarasenko missed his second straight game against the Boston Bruins on Wednesday. He'll miss the second game. The game actually hasn't been played yet. So Tarasenko won't be in against the Bruins. And we were talking earlier how important it is for St. Louis to get these games in hand won, with the Bruins possibly being one of those. It could be considered as one of those games. And they're going to have to win without Vladimir Tarasenko.
Right.
But he is essentially day-to-day, and we don't know what the injury is. He didn't play on Sunday, and they're saying it's an upper body injury, so we don't know for sure what it is, but it appears to be just a day-to-day thing for him. And like Lane, this is a guy that St. Louis needs if they're going to make the playoffs.
Absolutely.
They need him now to get into the playoffs. At least Winnipeg's in.
Winnipeg's in. You're right. They could rest Lane for 5 games.
Yep.
And they're still in.
Yep.
So, St. Louis does not have that luxury.
No. They need Tarasenko back.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's all the injuries I had. Unless you saw one.
Henrik Lundqvist is hurt. He will not play Thursday night.
Yeah, I saw that collision with his own guy.
Yeah.
It looked like he got shook up. He looks like he got shook. He ended up finishing the game, but it looks like he got shook up in that collision.
They did not disclose whether it was a shoulder or a neck injury, but he will not. He's a scratch for Thursday night. And beyond that, I don't know. But he is injured. It is an injury. He's not being scratched as a healthy scratch to put Georgiev in. He is a scratch because he was hurt. So
they'll dress Georgiev and somebody else probably.
I would, if Pavlik is ready to come back, they'll probably have Pavlik in the backup role.
Yeah.
That's
how
I
they seem to be wanting to give Georgiev a lot of games right now.
Yep.
To get a real good look at him.
Yep.
For probably 2 reasons: either A, put him out there as trade bait, or B, to see if he's ready to challenge Lundqvist for his job.
Well, I don't know if it's going to be an interesting off season. I don't know if it's so much to challenge Lundqvist as it would be to challenge Pavlik at this point.
Yep.
And maybe next year those two do go one if Georgiev wins the backup role, maybe he does duel Henrik for the starting role. But I think at this point right now, they're looking for a more solid backup goalie. And I don't think Andre Pavlik has been that guy this year.
Well, this day and age, if you're a serious contending team, you're going to have two goalies that you can rely on.
Right.
That's just the bottom line.
Right.
Teams with just one goalie now are a very fragile team.
Right.
I mean, look at the Pittsburgh Penguins. They've been sputtering at certain times throughout the season. Whenever Matt Murray gets hurt, they're sputtering.
Right.
And because of that, they're having to fight for their playoff lives just to get in. Yeah, they've been sitting in that, bouncing between 2 and 3 in their division for the last couple of months, but they're still only a few points out, above the playoff line. They could, a 5-game losing streak is all it would take to knock Pittsburgh out of the playoffs.
Right.
And the reason that they're not running away with that division is the fact that Murray's been hurt a lot, and they've been struggling with the next whoever else they've been putting in net.
Right.
And the Rangers, if they're going to get back into the thick of things, are going to need 2 strong goalies. And in my mind right now, just looking at the 3 that they've got that are playing, I would go with Georgiev and Lundqvist next year.
Right.
And start Lundqvist because of his age, maybe 50 games, give Georgiev 30, and if one of them gets really hot, ride the hot hand for a while.
Right. Right.
And then find another place for Pavlik to go, either waive him or try to trade him or something.
Yeah, I don't think Andre Pavlik worked out, so
no.
And that was a big problem.
That was a concern that you had right at the beginning of the year when they got rid of Antti Rana.
Yep, that was a tough one because I think Henrik, with his age right now, playing 60 games a year is all he can play. Yep. So and he's had his
and until they got knocked
his bad games, but he's won 25 this year. So
yeah. And until the Rangers got knocked out of the playoffs, they were playing him at a pace that he would have been well over 60 games.
Yeah.
Now since they've fallen off the playoff race, they figured there's nothing to lose. You might as well take a good look at Georgiev, and he's been playing the bulk of the games in the last, 10 or 15 games or so.
Right.
Georgiev's been starting the bulk of them just so they can get a good look at him and giving Lundqvist a rest. So, but yeah, they need to find a way. They need to get a goalie situation where Lundqvist doesn't have to play 65 games or 70.
Right.
All right, let's move on to suspensions and fines. Originally, I didn't have any, but I found one late today that was announced.
Yep.
It's actually a small fine in NHL terms. A lot of money for you and I, but Tampa Bay Lightning forward Steven Stamkos has been fined $5,000, the maximum allowable under the collective bargaining agreement, for a dangerous trip against Toronto Maple Leafs defenseman Morgan Rielly during NHL Game 1127 in Tampa on Tuesday, March 20th. The NHL's Department of Player Safety announced today the incident occurred at 10:25 of the second period. Stamkos was assessed a minor penalty for elbowing, but the fine was for a trip. So what did he do? Slew foot a guy? I didn't see the play.
I just casually took a look at it today as I was going through the stories and stuff. I did not see the play. I know he got fined.
He got a penalty for elbowing,
right?
But he got fined for a trip on the play. The only thing that comes to my mind, just trying to think in terms of a hockey player, is as he's elbowing the player, he's probably kicking the back of the player's skates, kind of slew-footing him. I haven't seen the play, but I'm reading between the lines here, thinking that's probably what it was.
Right. On that one, I don't know. I can't speak to it. I did not see the play.
So it's $5,000. Stamkos will drop that quarter out. That's a quarter to you and me. So he'll drop that and move on, and they'll go on to the playoffs and live happily ever after. But it would be fun to see Toronto play Tampa in the first round. That would be fun.
I'd love that one.
Yep.
That one might not turn out the way Tampa wants it.
Yep. Yeah, especially with
Austin Matthews.
Austin Matthews still slated to come back. Yeah. All right. That's it for those types of stories. Now on to other interesting stories. In the next several stories I have are all concerning the Board of Governors meeting that have been going on this week.
Yes.
And the first one is talking about, and basically is a lot of discussion with the rules going on this week at the Board of Governors meeting. It was only 3 days this time around. It was Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday down at the Boca Raton Beach Club or Boca Raton something. It's a hotel. They go to the same place every year. One of these years, I keep thinking, if the NHL's Board of Governors meeting take place at this exclusive resort or hotel or whatever, is find a way to get a room in that hotel for that specific week and go stay there as a regular vacationer and just kind of pop in on some of the GM meetings. Go rub elbows with the commish. But I'm sure it would be very, very pricey. Because I'm sure the NHL has that whole place booked between the reporters and all the GMs and their staff. I'm sure that whole resort is pretty well booked for that week. But anyway, the NHL GMs want to give final authority on goaltender interference reviews initiated by a coach's challenge to the Situation Room in Toronto. The on-ice officials have a final authority on these reviews, but they consult with members of the NHL Hockey Operations Department in the Situation Room before deciding allow or overturn a goal. The league hopes to make an announcement on the potential change in the review process on Wednesday, but it's still determining whether it needs approval from other organizations, including the NHL Players Association and NHL's Official Association and the Board of Governors, because it involves a change in playing conditions. The hope is to implement the change immediately. If the Board of Governors' approval is required, the league needs a unanimous vote of yes to make an in-season change. And a couple of quotes. What I'm hearing from the managers is they want consistency. Colin Campbell, NHL Senior Executive Vice President of Hockey Operations, said on Tuesday following day 2 of the GM meetings in Boca Beach Club. That's what it is. And not who's doing it. It's that we've got 5 guys in the Situation Room that participate in the review process, 2 that do 90% of them, and in the playoffs we've got 1 individual that does them all. One change being considered is adding recently retired referees to the decision-making process. Chris King, NHL Senior Vice President of Hockey Operations, said Monday the Situation Room had strong disagreement with the final decision in only 4 of the 170 reviews for goaltender interference through 1,100 games this season. So, and that story goes on and on. I've got a link to it in the show notes. And later on in the afternoon, that story I picked up this morning, and later on in the afternoon, they announced it that they will, in fact, move to have the Situation Room have final say in goaltender interference reviews, whereas currently it's the on-ice officials that have final say.
Right.
So the overall theme of this particular issue is, NHL players, fans, managers, coaches, everybody involved has not been happy with the goaltender interference rule because nobody seems to know what goaltender interference is anymore. And there's a big gray area with goaltender interference that is basically left up to a judgment call. What they're debating in this case is who the judgment is going to fall to. Right now, it falls to the on-ice officials. Now, the on-ice officials only have their own personal experience to fall back on. They don't get to see the other games going on in other cities, and sometimes don't get to see all of the goalie interference plays. Having it moved to the central office in Toronto, the Situation Room as they call it, you've got a small group of people that are making all those decisions. They're seeing all the games. They're seeing all the scenarios where the goaltender interference is coming up. So I think this would be a positive change in that you're going to start to see more consistency on what is and what is not goaltender interference. Now, there's still gray area. There's still going to be people that disagree because it is a gray area. There's still going to be that issue that is going to be construed as, inconsistent. Because one thing they did in references, they showed, I think they said they showed 14 plays to the GMs. Video replay of 14 specific plays that were considered the most controversial or the most difficult to judge. And the room was split on who thinks it was or was not goaltender interference.
Okay.
Then they took 9 of those videos, showed those to the press that were in attendance, and the room was split amongst the press. So the bottom line is nobody can decide what is and what is not 100% black and white what goalie interference is. So until they figure out how to make goalie interference a black and white call, there's still going to be controversy. But at least in this case, with having the Situation Room having final say on all the calls, at least we should start to see a little bit more consistency than we have in the past. I guess it's a step in the right direction.
Agreed.
So I guess we'll see what happens going forward. But it looks like they're looking to implement it immediately, which means by the time we start the playoffs, it should be in place. All right. Another meeting they had at the GM meetings was with the George Peros in the Department of Player Safety.
I saw him with his full-fledged suit on. Hair slicked back. He didn't look like the George Peros I remember on the ice.
Barely even recognized him, right? He looked all sharp. So anyway, George Peros led a discussion concerning, the Department of Player Safety with the GMs, and he acknowledged that shots to the head are way down. There's really only been 2 suspensions for illegal checks to the head this season. So he led the discussion to bring focus to incidents of interference and boarding and those types of plays.
Right.
Now, the interference that he's talking about is not just regular old interference. He's talking about the late hits, or what they call the late hits. Players gotten rid of the puck, and the hit is clearly avoidable, and a player continues on and hits the player anyway. Most recent example of that is the 3-game suspension that David Backes of the Bruins got for the late hit on the Detroit Red Wings, Franz Nielsen.
Right.
Those now he wants the focus kind of trained towards getting rid of that stuff. Now, not back off on the head contact stuff, but now that they seemingly have the head contact stuff under control, they need to focus on, the next worst or dangerous, because the Department of Player Safety is focused on dangerous plays, and they're trying to get those out of the game. So interference.
The boarding one crops up. That is a rather common occurrence.
Yep. Yeah. And the discussion around the boarding one is trying to get the players thinking on the boarding. He mentioned there's a lot of cases where the boarding becomes a gray area because a lot of players at the and it tends to be an issue with the younger players that have basically grown up having been taught that if you see the numbers, you don't hit, right?
Right.
Well, a lot of players would use that to their advantage, particularly in youth hockey, in that when they know they're about to be hit, they would turn at the very last second and show their numbers at the guy who's about to hit them.
Yeah.
Almost to the point where it's, they turn and then get hit almost immediately, where the player hitting them has no time to react to that.
Right.
And then the kid gets thrown into the boards and, bam, you got a boarding penalty.
Right.
So they're looking at ways to try to reduce the amount of boarding calls by seeing if they can do anything about these players who turn at the last second and put themselves in a vulnerable spot, rather than the player hitting them, putting them into a vulnerable spot. You follow what I'm saying?
I follow what you're saying.
Yeah.
I think right from the very get-go, Wayne, on this, okay, I think it's inconsistent. I think they call some boarding penalties, and other times they let it go. I've even seen the player leave his feet and literally run the player right into the boards, and no call. No penalty. No nothing. You can't review it. There's nothing you can do. That particular call is not made well at all. I don't think the officials make that call well.
Yep.
And it might be because they're not in a position to make it when it happens. But it infuriated me in that Nashville game to no end to watch Mark Stahl get boarded in. He could have been seriously injured on that one. And they didn't even call a penalty on Alexei Yemelin. That happens. It's not an uncommon thing.
Yep.
And that particular call needs to be straightened out.
Yep. And that goes to the players leaving the referees having to judge, okay, did he turn into the hit on purpose in order to draw a boarding penalty? Right. Or did the player really intend to deliver that hit?
Well, in the case of and I'm talking about one particular instance. I watched Alexei Yemelin launch himself into Mark Stahl, who was lucky that his head was up when he hit the boards.
Yeah.
Or it could have been a very serious injury.
Yep.
And I watched it. It was blatant. There was no call. There was no penalty. No nothing.
Here's a couple of quotes from Peros, basically concerning the boarding issue. He said that when it comes to boarding, the department sees younger players turning their backs to the play at the last second, perhaps because they've grown up not expecting to be hit. He said those are the tough ones to determine where the fault lies. Peros said if a player can actually get out of the way before making contact when he does see the numbers, we take that into consideration. But we do see a lot of younger players these days putting themselves in tough situations at the last second. And then he also said that most interference, he's going on to interference. But in that case, I didn't see the Stl hit, so I can't speak to whether or not Stl did that, put himself in a bad spot. But it just makes the job tougher on them. So I think there's an education there that they need to get the players to stop doing that.
Well, I agree with you. And let me put it like this. Even if Stl did do that, and I don't believe he did, but even if he did turn his numbers, when you leave your feet and you run a player into the boards, it don't matter whether he turns or not.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You cannot leave your feet and launch yourself into somebody. That's the part of it that is inconsistent.
Yep.
And they need to make sure that every single time that happens, it's a penalty.
Yep. Agreed. So yeah, that was one of the things discussed at the Board of Governors meeting. Also, they discussed offsides, specifically the coaches' challenge concerning offsides. And they talked a lot about, there's been a lot of goals. I think they said 16 goals were overturned due to a player having a skate off the ice, where that skate was still above the blue line or outside the blue line, but the skate itself was off the ice. So their other foot is the only foot in contact with the ice, and the other foot put them offside.
Okay.
And there was a discussion of whether or not they should change the rule for offsides that allows for a skate that's in the air but still onside to be considered an onside play. And they ultimately decided they're not going to change the rule because if you change this rule, what are you introducing that could be detrimental to the game that is unforeseen? Like, for example, if they're going to allow skates in the air, you're going to start to see players as they go over the blue line leaving that back skate high up in the air and could potentially cut somebody in order to keep themselves onside, right? So they looked at this and they decided the bottom line is only 16 goals out of however many hundreds that have been scored were overturned due to offside, that they're just going to put that one right back in the player's lap and say, you know the rule. You know you got to have skate contact with the ice onside in order to be considered onside, and if you're not willing to do that, then you're going to be called offside, plain and simple. So they discussed it, but ultimately nothing will change there.
I agree. I think they've actually done a very good job on that.
Yep.
The offsides thing, I'm glad they review it, and that they've actually really got that down.
Yep. The only thing that would make this better is if now the cameras are already very good, but as the technology of the cameras gets better, they could get clearer cameras so you can more clearly see whether or not a skate is off the ice or not. Because some of them, you can't tell based on the shadows or whatever it is, the lack of lighting, whether that, you can't tell 100% whether or not the skate is on or off the ice. They may still have a toe of the skate touching the ice, but it looks like their foot is off the ice because either the lighting's not bright enough or the camera's not sharp enough or whatever it may be. So they just need to improve the technology, and I think that'll improve that case. Did you see anything else come out of the GM meetings? Those were the three major topics that I had seen.
No, I actually I did not. I think the one that was for me the most important one is George Paros's presentation on head contact and boarding. That's the one I pay particular attention to.
Yep.
The offside one, I think that you'll find that most of the I can't even remember a time where they got that play wrong, where I watched the game where they got it wrong.
Yeah, they very rarely get it wrong.
That one they've got down. They know how to call that. But what I have seen is coaches make a bad decision and
call for the replay, yeah,
right, and lose the goal, and then go into the they're on the penalty kill.
Yeah, I can think of at least two occasions where I've been watching a Bruins game, and the TV crew shows it to us fans, the replay, and then the Bruins, and I'm like, no, don't call for it, and then the Bruins go ahead and call for the replay,
right?
And I'm like, oh, there goes they're gonna get they're gonna be shorthanded now,
right?
So I don't know if that's the team needs to have better staff in place to determine, because I know the coaches have radios, maybe not the head coach, but usually one of the assistant coaches has a radio on and has contact with somebody upstairs who can decide one way or another whether or not they should challenge it. But yeah, the referees generally in most cases don't get it wrong on that one. If they can just figure out if they could just make goaltender interference a black and white issue, that would be something. But I don't know if we'll ever get there without rewriting the rules significantly. Anyway,
right?
Okay, So we are at honors and milestones, and I only saw one this week, which is the weekly 3 stars of the week. Defenseman, St. Louis defenseman Alex Pietrangelo, and Colorado Avalanche center Nathan MacKinnon, and Toronto Maple Leafs goalie Curtis McElhinney have been named the NHL's 3 stars for the week ending March 18th. Pietrangelo led the NHL with 9 points in 4 games to power the Blues to a 3-1 week and within 1 point of the final spot in the Western Conference. McKinnon paced the NHL with 6 goals and ranked second with 8 points in 4 games as the Avalanche went 3-1 to climb to the first wildcard spot in the Western Conference. McElhinney went 3-0 with a 1.57 goals against average and .955 save percentage and 1 shutout as the Maple Leafs posted a perfect week to move within 2 wins of matching the single-season franchise record reached in 98-99, 99-2000, and 2003-2004. So kudos to those 3 guys. All right. We're down to the power rankings already.
We are, and it is your turn, Wayne.
It is my turn. And this week, I'm going to start at 20 because that is the lowest ranking I've got for a team that is still has some semblance of playoff possibility.
Okay.
Right? So I'm
Fair
going to
enough.
go from 20 up to 1.
Okay.
And at number 20, I've got, so everybody below 20 in my mind are completely out of the playoff contention, have no shot at making it. And even 1 or 2 of these players in the top 20 or one of these teams don't have a shot at making it either. But anyway, at number 20, I've got Calgary. They still have a shot. They're on life support, but they've got a shot at making the playoffs. At number 19, I've got New Jersey. At number 18, I've got Florida. 17, I've got Dallas, and they're dropping fast. They were 13th last week on my list anyway. 16th, I've got St. Louis. 15th, I've got Philly. 14th is Columbus. 13th is LA. 12 is Anaheim. 11 is Pittsburgh. 10 is Colorado. 9 is Minnesota. 8 is Washington. 7 is San Jose. 6 is Toronto. 5 is Vegas. 4 is Winnipeg. 3 is still Boston, 2 is Tampa Bay, and 1 is Nashville. And the reason I've got those 2 teams 1, 2 is they are the only teams that have clinched a playoff spot, so why not have them 1 and 2?
Right, I agree. I can't say that I have a disagreement on that, Wayne. You know, I might put St. Louis ahead of Philly or Dallas below Florida or something like that, but no, relatively speaking, that looks like a good list to me.
It's fairly close, yep. All right, well, let's look ahead to the week upcoming. Carolina, of course, has 4 games in the next week. It's kind of a busy week around the league this upcoming week. Actually, I've got the schedule for basically today all the way through next Friday. So, yeah, every team's got a bunch of games. Carolina is going to be at home against Arizona on the 22nd. They're going to be at Ottawa on the 24th. And then they come back home and play Ottawa at home. So home and home on the 26th. And then they go at New Jersey on the 27th. And I'm done saying whether or not any of these games are must-wins for Carolina because at this point, it's tank time. So These are must-losses for Carolina. In order to get a higher draft pick, even though it's not guaranteed. But now the Rangers...
And it could be what the Rangers are very effectively doing.
Yep.
But when it comes to the Rangers, Wayne, I see you have the games listed all the way through the end of the month, and of course we're going to have a podcast before then. I'm going to go ahead and speak directly to. We play Philadelphia tomorrow night.
Yep.
Let's see. That game is in Philadelphia, and it is on NBC Sports Network. And lo and behold, if Henrik is not going to play in that game, and they put Georgiev in there, I think that's going to be a good game. I think the Rangers will come out and really give Philadelphia a game in that game.
Play spoilers at this point.
I think they are going to try their very best to take down the Flyers. And, of course, that's a major rivalry. Always has been. So I'm not going to miss that game, that's for sure. Saturday night, we play at home, and I think there's only 2 games left after the conclusion of this game. They play the Buffalo Sabres. And again, the role that actually should be very competitive because I think Buffalo is looking to cause as much damage as they can.
Yeah, and they've been playing well lately.
I agree. So that is another good game. That one though is on center ice. If you're going to want to catch that, you got to go on center ice to watch it or NHL.tv. Then we get to Monday the 26th. The Rangers complete a home and home with the Washington Capitals. The initial game is on NBC Sports Network on Monday night at 7:30. That game is in the Garden, a very rare 7:30 start in the Garden. You don't see that very often.
Yep.
And then Wednesday night, again, NBC Sports Network. This time the game is held in the phone booth at the Verizon Center in Washington. We're playing the Capitals at 8 o'clock start time, and both of those games will be televised nationally on NBC Sports Network. I think, Wayne, that we will probably have our podcast either that Wednesday or Thursday, so I'm not going to speak to the final two games you have on here, because I don't think they'll come into play yet.
Okay.
But in the show notes, you do have us with Tampa Bay and Carolina.
Yep.
Tampa Bay being the final home game of the season for us.
Yep. So that'll be shirts off your back night. Do they do that in New York? Where they bring
yes,
down?
They do.
Yeah.
Yes, they do.
Where they
do.
Where they
bring kids to the ice and give them the shirt. That they most certainly do.
Yep. Yeah, a lot of teams doing that nowadays. All right, well, Boston has a busy week as well. They've got St. Louis tonight, and then Friday night. Seems like their schedule is like a day off from everybody else's. Friday night, they play at Dallas, and then they go up to Minnesota on the 25th, and then they go to Winnipeg on the 27th. So basically, it's like the Midwest road trip, not the West Coast road trip, but the Midwest road trip for Boston.
Yep.
So St. Louis, Dallas, Minnesota, Winnipeg, all on the road. And they're playing every other day, starting tonight. So then you got Friday night, Sunday night, and then Tuesday night. And then their next home game is against Tampa Bay on the 29th. And I think right after that, they play Florida. So a lot of games with Tampa Bay and Florida to finish the season for Boston, which are going to have huge playoff implications for in terms of seeding in the playoffs. I don't know if it'll determine whether or not a team makes it or doesn't make the playoffs, although Florida still got to fight for their lives to go. But
Right.
But anyway, so that's the week ahead for Boston, is basically a long road trip out to the Midwest.
Be a good test for them.
Yep. All right, we're on to the Minor League Hockey Minute. And I'm going to do mine first because you want to talk about actually a possible new college hockey program, and we'll use that to lead our College Hockey Minute.
Okay.
So, with that, I found two articles on the Hockey News website that I found interesting, and it's looking forward to their annual Future Watch issue came out this week, which is a special issue that they do that takes a look at every team and their prospects. Yeah, that one right there. I don't have it myself, but you obviously do. You just showed it on your camera.
Yep.
So, but I found these articles on their website, and it talks about 10 players who have risen in the prospect rankings over the past year, and then a second article of 10 players that have dropped in their rankings over the past year. So I will just list off these players, and we can talk about any of these players you want to talk about. All right, number one on the players who have risen is Jordan Kyrou, right winger of the St. Louis Blues. Last year he was 97th in the playoff or in the prospect rankings. This year he's up to 12th. So that should get Blues fans excited that he's risen that far in the prospect rankings. Number two is Carter Hart. This is a guy I've talked about for a couple of times this season. He's goaltender and he's a Philadelphia Flyers prospect. He wasn't even ranked in the top 100 last year, and now he's up to 35th. And I know the Flyers are very excited about him, and they're basically, whoever is playing goal for the Flyers right now is basically a seat warmer for this kid for when he's ready. This season, he put up 1.81 goals against average and .930 save percentage in 6 games at the World Junior Championships playing for Canada. He was their starting goalie. And those numbers are poor if you considered what he's done down in juniors. In juniors, he's put up 1.60 goals against average and .947 save percentage in 47 games. Those are insane numbers to put at the junior level. So Flyers fans should be very excited that their goaltending situation might finally be fixed after I want to say years, but it's really decades of nothing but a revolving door at the goaltender position for the Flyers. The last solid number one they had that I can remember is Ron Hextall. Everybody else has been kind of temporary for the Flyers.
Right.
So we'll see how that goes. Number 3 is Nick Merkley. He's a right winger in the Arizona Coyotes. He wasn't ranked last year. This year, he's 49th. Number 4 is Adam Fox, defenseman in the Calgary Flames organization. Again, last year not ranked. This year, 52nd in the rankings. Number 5, Travis Dermott, Toronto Maple Leafs defenseman prospect. Not ranked last year. This year, 54th. Number 6, Boris Tkachuk, left winger in the Tampa Bay organization. Last year not ranked, this year 61st. Number 7, Taylor Radish, right winger, Tampa Bay Lightning. Last year was 99th in the prospect ranking, this year up to 62nd. Cale Clegg, defenseman, LA Kings, is number 8. Last year 94th, this year 58th. Jonathan Dahlen, center, Vancouver Canucks, is the 9th player in this list. Not ranked last year, this year 66. And number 10, Nikita Sherbak, right winger, Montreal Canadiens. Last year, 98th. This year, 63rd. So if these kids keep continuing to improve, particularly over the offseason, I would not be surprised to see at least half, if not more, of these on NHL rosters next fall.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting.
Now, as for the players that have dropped in the prospect rankings, number 1 on the list, Julien Gauthier, right winger, Carolina Hurricanes.
Wow.
Last year, he was the 25th ranked player on the list. This year, not even in the top 100. So a lot of that is because he has kind of had a subpar year. He came out of juniors at the end of last season. This was his first year in the American Hockey League, and the reason he was drafted so high is because everybody raves about him being one of the physical specimen. He's as strong and as rugged as a full-fledged veteran in the NHL, but yet he was just a junior kid. Well, apparently being that much in shape hasn't contributed to or attributed to success at the AHL level, because he's only had 16 points in 55 games, and he's a forward. He's not a defenseman. So kind of a weak showing and I don't think we saw him in the last game. Did we? I didn't see Gauthier out there. He didn't play when we went down.
No, I don't recall seeing him at all.
Yep. I think he played the first game. He might have played the first game. I don't know. He's only played 55 games, but apparently he's been showing flashes of being ready, but it's not consistently there. So he is only 20, so he's got plenty of time to recover. But the Hurricanes there don't have. They've seen him drop quite a bit in the rankings. Number 2, Max Jones, left winger, Anaheim Ducks. Last year he was 28th. This year he's dropped all the way to 86th. Another big player. Like Gauthier, another big, strong player, expected to be a power forward, and he hasn't come to fruition yet. Number 3 on the list, Denis Gurianov, right winger, Dallas Stars, 43rd last year, 98th this year. So a former first-round draft pick has kind of fallen off.
Mm-hmm.
Number 4, Vladislav Kamenev, center, Colorado Avalanche. Last year, 48th. This year, not even ranked. Had some injury issues over the past year, so that's probably a big reason why he's fallen off the rankings. He had a broken arm, according to the article. So that'll be tough to come back from, or it takes a while to come back from for sure. Number 5, John Gillies, goaltender, Calgary Flames. Last year, 49th. This year, not ranked. This is very concerning for Calgary Flames fans because Mike Smith was signed basically to be the seat holder until Gillies is ready.
Yeah.
And now it's looking like Gillies is taking a step back in his development. And David Rittich has kind of established himself in Calgary as the number 2 guy. So maybe he may end up taking the number 2 over Gillies. So we'll see. Number 6, Jake Wallman, defenseman, St. Louis Blues. Last year ranked 50th. This year not ranked at all. Not sure why he has fallen so much. Number 7, Riley Tufte, left winger, Dallas Stars. Last year, 43rd. This year, not ranked. He went from a top 50 prospect last year. Now he's ranked 6th on the Dallas Stars list alone. So yeah, he's fallen out of favor there in Dallas. That's not good. Evgeny Svechnikov is number 8, right winger, Detroit Red Wings. Last year, 20th. This year, 65th. The thing that strikes me with Russians, though, in particular, or guys that fall off the list, is I wonder if some of it has to do with the fact that they just want to stay in the KHL a little bit longer. And don't want to come over here. Bruins have one of those. Koklachev went back to Russia. He felt like he wasn't getting enough playing time. He felt like he should have been with the Bruins and not the Providence Bruins. So he decided to go back to Russia. Now they're not sure whether he'll ever come back. Well, and he was a pretty highly ranked prospect for the Bruins a couple of years ago.
You remember Shipachyov's comments that he made when he got back to the KHL with SKA?
Yep.
Is that his advice to any player who contacted him in the future would be to think 10 times over before going to the NHL and make sure that's what you want to do.
Yep, for sure. All right, number 9, Rasmus Asplund, center, Buffalo Sabres. Last year was ranked 39th. This year, 82nd. Just kind of had a subpar year this year.
Right.
And number 10, Logan Stanley, defenseman, Winnipeg Jets. Last year ranked 58th. This year not ranked at all.
Right.
Apparently he's a big, tall defenseman, similar to he draws comparisons to Zdeno Chara, But if you remember right, Zdeno Chara was rather slow developing. When he was with the Islanders, he wasn't much of a player, and he really didn't develop into a top-tier defenseman until several years into his Ottawa years, because he did play for the Islanders at one time, if you go back far enough. All right, that's it for those articles. 10 players who've risen, 10 players who've fallen.
Very interesting.
Thankfully, no Rangers or Bruins on the fallen list.
Yeah, I was glad to see that. I do have that edition too here, by the way. I will be taking a look at that article closely now.
Yep.
What a great magazine.
Yep. Yeah, I'm debating whether or not to go out and get it, but I'd have to go out to a newsstand and get it because I don't have hockey news coming to my house as of yet. I should, though. I really should. All right, let's move on to the College Hockey Minute, and you're going to lead with a story concerning the University of Illinois.
Well, I don't want to step in on your College Hockey Minute, Wayne.
Sure,
but
why not?
I did want to bring this up. We talked about the college. Landscape is a good word, particularly when it comes to the Big Ten, where they only have 7 teams. They might be the least populated of any conference. But if you look at the Big Ten, there's some of those teams from the old, and I'm talking the old traditional Big Ten with Indiana, Iowa, etc.
Yep.
Some of those teams, for example, Indiana, I don't think they're college ice hockey ready. That's a basketball school, and Indiana's a basketball state, and I don't know. That Notre Dame is an exception to that, but I don't know that you'll ever see Indiana getting their money together, most importantly, to support college hockey. But, stranger things have happened. Same thing in Iowa, which is a huge football school. But in the case of the University of Illinois, there has been a tremendous amount of interest. And they were one of these teams where they did a feasibility study just recently, and it just recently concluded within the last 10 days. And they put together a report commissioned by the university, and that's what my article is on this week. The University of Illinois feasibility study completed. The first feasibility study into adding Division I men's hockey was released Thursday, this one by the University of Illinois. The bottom line to the study offered few, if any, surprises. There is strong interest in hockey at Illinois. It would do well from a fan interest and revenue standpoint if it was started, but it needs major funding in order to get it started. It was first announced last year that the National Hockey League, in conjunction with the NHL Players Association and College Hockey Incorporated, would commission a series of studies aimed at discovering the feasibility of adding hockey at various schools. The first to be conducted was at the University of Illinois, announced at the Frozen Four in Chicago last April. This comes as no surprise to anyone who followed the formation of programs at Penn State and Arizona State over the last decade. Both of those schools were long believed to have interest, but didn't get off the ground until donors stepped up with massive contributions. The strong consensus of everyone involved in college hockey is that the NCAA men's hockey will flourish at the University of Illinois, said Mike Snee, Executive Director of College Hockey Incorporated. From the number of native Illinois players currently playing college hockey to the continued growth of youth hockey players in the state, there are many reasons to be confident that the Fighting Illini could quickly become a top national program and sustain it every year. We're very appreciative of the university administration's willingness to consider bringing NCAA hockey to Champaign. The report noted expanding enthusiasm for ice hockey at all levels in the state of Illinois, which creates a foundation for Illinois to develop a men's hockey program that would, in a relatively short time frame, become financially viable and competitive on a conference and national level. The last Division I program was at Illinois Chicago, but it disbanded in the early 1990s. The state of Illinois has the 6th highest youth hockey participation in the nation, 22,373 in 2017, which has grown exponentially with an increase of nearly 300% since 1993. The state also produces the fourth most Division I hockey players in the country, with 85 players from Illinois currently competing for Division I teams. The study recommends development of a new facility on the location proposed in downtown Champaign. The school agrees it would be a good location and will start planning efforts on a 5,000 to 6,000 seat arena. However, Illinois was careful to note that no decision on adding a hockey program is being made and would happen only if it can successfully fund the program and received needed support from various campus and community stakeholders. We are excited to share the results of a feasibility study and continue advancing our efforts to bring Division I hockey to Champaign-Urbana, said Illinois Director of Athletics Josh Whitman. This is one of our most ambitious and potentially impactful projects in recent history. Adding Division I hockey and building the new arena it would require would be transformative for the sport of hockey in the state of Illinois and for our university, our athletic program, and importantly, for the Champaign-Urbana communities. We are grateful for the partnerships we have developed with the Chicago Blackhawks, the NHL, and College Hockey Incorporated, all of which have become the champions for this cause. We look forward to engaging with more people from across the state to generate the support necessary to make this project a reality. Interesting stuff coming out of Champaign-Urbana, and it grabbed at me. I think that's a perfect place for it. That's a school where I think hockey would do well, considering their,
Yeah, it's like you got a state full of high-end hockey players with no place to play in state right now.
Right.
So, and I'm trying to think back I remember Illinois, Chicago back in the day having a team, and Maine played them a couple of times, but I can't remember for the life of me why they got rid of the program there. I think it might have been budget issues. But one of the things the NCAA requires is, an arena. You can't just play in any regular old hockey arena.
Right.
They want an arena that seats preferably 5,000 or more.
Right.
Now there are a lot of smaller programs in this country playing in arenas smaller than that, but they're making it work.
One of the things that I did a little studying on this, and there was another article written by the University of Illinois. Apparently, their volleyball program, their women's ice hockey program, if they were to get up and going, gymnastics, both men and women, and I think a couple other sports that compete in a very old, very outdated building, which is sadly in need of being upgraded. And that they could put those sports in this arena as well, and really, get more for your money, so to speak.
Yep.
So, but it's interesting. It's more in just that it has advanced beyond just the discussion stage now. It's really whether or not they can viably fund this project.
Right.
And if they can, I think you'll see hockey without a question going to U of I.
I hope they do. That would be interesting to get another. I'm always for more college hockey teams, even though there's already more than 60 out there. I'd like to see it. I'd like to see it grow as big as college basketball. What is it? 250 some odd schools that play at the Division I level.
Right.
Wouldn't that be fun to have a 64 team hockey tournament?
That would be. One and done?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
I mean, we already have a 16 team, and we'll get to that in a minute. But it would be fun to see college hockey grow that much. But it's been painstakingly slow, and it seems like every team that gets added to the college hockey world, another team falls off due to budgetary reasons. So, and Illinois, Chicago was one of the teams that went away back in the day. And it is what it is, I guess. But yeah, let's hope that University of Illinois gets their stuff that they need and get things going for their program for sure. That'll be fun. I mean, Penn State certainly got it together. So
yeah,
and they're flourishing. They made the NCAA tournament this year.
Yeah, their program's doing very well.
Yep. All right. Speaking of the NCAA tournament, guess what time it is? It is time for the NCAA tournament.
Yes.
All the college hockey conferences wrapped up at the end of this past weekend, and we are now heading into the big tournament. 16 teams for all the marbles in the NCAA tournament. And I did a video for the YouTube channel on Saturday night right after the last of the conference tournaments ended. And I did a video that was essentially my attempt at guessing, number one, who makes the field of 16, and number two, who's going to play who. Would you know that I got all 16 teams right as far as who got in? As far as who played who, I was way off. But as far as who got in, I got all 16 teams right.
That's very good.
So the teams that made automatic bids by winning their conference tournament ended up being Boston University, Princeton, Air Force, Notre Dame, Michigan Tech, and Denver. 4 of those 6 teams were surprise winners in their conference. Boston University, Princeton, Air Force, and Michigan Tech were well outside the top 15 of the pairwise rankings, and they won their conference tournament in order to get in the team or get in the tournament.
Mm-hmm.
So what that does is if those kind of lower quality teams get in by winning their way in, that means there's 4 teams that get knocked out because they were sitting a little bit too low in the pairwise to get consideration for at-large bids. Now, as far as the at-large bids are concerned, the teams that got in: St. Cloud State, Cornell, Ohio State, Minnesota State, Providence, Michigan, Northeastern, Clarkson, Penn State, and Minnesota Duluth. They all got in with that at-large bid. The teams that were knocked out, and a couple of these teams were knocked out simply because they were the victim of another team being a surprise winner in their conference. Minnesota, North Dakota, Boston University, Boston College, Bowling Green, Northern Michigan, and Union. They were all kind of on that bubble of questioning whether or not they'd get in, and if the games went the right way over the weekend, they could have gotten in, but ultimately all those teams got knocked out because they just didn't finish high enough in the pairwise.
Mm-hmm.
So, now, as for the matchups, this weekend we have 4 regionals that are going to be going on. March 23rd, 24th is the first round. The second round is March 24th and 25th to determine the Frozen Four, which will be next weekend. So the matchups this weekend in the East Regional, which is being held in Bridgeport, Connecticut, home of the Bridgeport American Hockey League team. What is it, the Bridgeport Sound Tigers?
Yeah, that's right.
That's right. Number 1, Cornell is going to be playing number 4, Boston University, and number 2, Michigan is going to be playing number 3, Northeastern. In the Northeast Regional, being held at Worcester, Mass., number 1, Notre Dame is going to be playing Michigan Tech, who's the number 4 seed in that region. Number 2, Providence plays number 3, Clarkson. In the Midwest Regional, held in Allentown, PA, number 1, Ohio State plays number 4, Princeton. And number 2, Denver plays number 3, Penn State. I would hate to be Denver in this situation. Games is being played in Allentown, PA, with Penn State being your opponent.
Wow.
It's like a home game for Penn State.
Yeah. Ooh.
Pretty much same thing for Providence in the Northeast Regional in Worcester, Mass. And the same goes for both BU and Northeastern in the Bridgeport Regional, and Cornell for that matter too. Cornell's not far away from Bridgeport. And in the final regional is the West Regional, being held in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. St. Cloud State plays, who's the number 1 seed, plays number 4, Air Force. And number 2, Minnesota State plays number 3, Minnesota Duluth. So there's your 4 regionals. There's all your matchups. And I've got a tournament bracket set up that I've been doing videos on the YouTube channel about. So if you want to see more details on that, just go to the YouTube channel at hockeynuts.com/YouTube, and you can see probably a more complete college hockey coverage on that, because I've did like a 30-minute video just talking nothing but college hockey on that one. But I don't know. See any games there that look intriguing to you?
The whole division, the whole thing looks good to me. But if you want my feeling on it, I think the regional, which looks really juicy to me, is the one in I think it's in Worcester. Let me see. Yeah, Worcester, where you have Cornell against Boston University, and Michigan against Northeastern. I think that is going to be, I hope I said that right.
Yep.
That is going to be a very, very intriguing series. I could see Boston University actually going to the Final Four, Frozen Four. I really could. I could see them pulling that off. I could see them beating Cornell and winning that second game.
Yep.
And because they have the players on that team. They just had a very
in the preseason they were a top 5 team because of all the high end NHL prospects that they had playing for that team, and they just never played that well all season long until probably the last 2 to 3 weeks of the regular season when they just won everything, and then they basically went through and won the Hockey East tournament, beat everybody. But Northeastern is a good team. They've got a couple of really good players on their team. They're kind of a one-line team, so if you shut down that one line, you can beat them. But Michigan, I don't know much about this year, but they're traditionally a powerhouse in college hockey. They always do well when it comes this time of year. And Cornell is got very few losses on the year. So yeah, that's a tough bracket right there.
Yep.
As far as the South Dakota bracket, I certainly see St. Cloud State rolling through that one. I don't think Air Force is going to be much of a fight for them, although we've seen stranger things happen. The Minnesota State-Minnesota Duluth game will be close. Kind of a flip a coin on whether who's going to win there, but I think St. Cloud State is ultimately the class of that region. In the Pennsylvania region, the Midwest, Ohio State, Princeton. Princeton got hot to win their conference tournament. That's why they're in. Whether or not they can sustain that is a big question. I think I see Ohio State rolling through that one. And I see Denver beating Penn State, although it won't be easy for them.
Right.
But Denver is the defending national champion, so until they get knocked out, you can't count them out. So I think I see Denver coming out of that one to make the Frozen Four. And then in the other region we haven't talked about yet, Notre Dame, Michigan Tech. Michigan Tech right now is on fire, and this is a tough draw for Notre Dame. Notre Dame's one of the best teams in the country, but Michigan Tech has been beating everybody on their way to winning their conference, and they're looking very strong right now. So that is going to be a tough game for Notre Dame, even though they're technically the number 2 team in the country. And then the other game in that one, Providence-Clarkson, I think Providence will come away with that one just because, Clarkson, even though they've had a great season, they play in the ECAC, which traditionally has kind of a weaker schedule. And Providence is playing tough teams every week in Hockey East. So I think Providence will come away the winner of that one. But I think whoever wins the Notre Dame Michigan Tech game, whoever that is going to come out of there and end up in the Frozen Four. So that's my pick, and we'll look at the Frozen Four next week. But it should be a fun tournament. I'm going to try to watch as many of those guys. Might not see many NHL games this weekend. I'm going to be watching a lot of college hockey.
I hear you.
So, all right, that's it on the College Hockey Minute. I did have one other story out of college hockey. Don Lucia, head coach at Minnesota, has stepped down. He was there for 19 years. That's a big change in the world of college hockey because Minnesota is a perennial powerhouse.
Right. And
players, players don't choose to go to Minnesota. Minnesota chooses their players. That's one of those programs. So. Right. And I think it won't matter who the coach is, but it'll be interesting to see who they choose to replace Lucia. My guess is it will probably be a Minnesota alum, someone who's made a living at the NHL and now will go back to college, go back home to Minnesota and take over that program and continue the tradition of winning over there in Minnesota. But it looks like it shows it. The article leads you to believe that he stepped down voluntarily, but I think he was forced out. They've missed the national tournament 2 out of the last 3 seasons, and they really haven't done much in the last 4 or 5 years. So. They've been one and done a lot lately, so that's not the Minnesota way. Minnesota is used to going to Frozen Fours on a regular basis. And it's been a while since they have. He had 2 national championships, but the last one was 2003. All right. That is it for the college hockey. So we're down to the picks of the week, and I didn't write yours down. What was yours?
Mine actually is very quick, Wayne. If you want, I can get it out of the way.
All right.
It won't take any more than 5 minutes. I actually saw the first wind of this last night on MSG when I was watching in between periods, and Bill Pito brought it up, and I couldn't get over the likeness of these two guys. Apparently, at a hockey game last week in Vancouver, a fan named let me make sure I get his name correctly here. His name is Eben, E-B-I-N, Eben Campbell, looks the spitting image of Joe Thornton.
Oh, yeah, I saw this.
And so I wrote...
That was amazing how much he looks like him.
It looks like Joe Thornton with less,
less of a beard.
Silver hair in his beard.
Yep.
But he has that same startings of the Scottish Terrier that Joe Thornton has in his beard. It makes him literally look like a Scottish Terrier with that big, long, square-like beard sticking out.
Yep.
Anyways, the article is entitled "Thornton Lookalike Surfaces at Sharks Game in Vancouver." Canucks fan holds up accurate sign pointing out the obvious. If Joe Thornton decides to follow up his storied NHL career with a pilot to acting, we may have just found the perfect stand-in. This is really something. He looks exactly like him. A jumbo lookalike surfaced in Vancouver where Thornton and the San Jose Sharks took on the Canucks Saturday night. The man, clad in a Sharks home jersey, and had fans doing double takes. One fan at the game, clad in a retro Canucks jersey, held up a sign that read, "This guy looks like Joe Thornton." The Sharks shared a photo of the two on their official Twitter account. And if you look at them, Joe Thornton's listed on the right. It really is hard to tell the difference. The only thing that got me to easily see it is Joe Thornton's beard is much more pronounced.
Yep.
Otherwise, facially, they look exactly alike.
Yeah.
It's not a slight resemblance. They really do look alike.
Yep, it is crazy how much they
Going
look
back
like.
to the article, just for comparison, the team took to Instagram and put up a side-by-side comparison. If you go on NHL.com, they have this. Now, this is going back to Saturday night when the game was held. Actually, you might find it on Sunday. But it does show the Instagram photo, and it's a great way to take a look and see. Finishing up, it says, while many issues are up for debate, this matter is not. The man looks very much like Joe Thornton. So, hey, they say everybody has a double. I'm surprised, Joe Thornton has one that attends games like that. I mean, he could literally step in for Joe Thornton and you wouldn't know the difference.
Yeah, and he comes complete with the beard and everything.
Yep, a long beard. The startings of a long beard.
Yep, well,
that's
good.
my the week, Wayne.
Well, good. Yeah, that was a funny story when I saw that. To see the body double, basically. That's essentially what he is. I'm sure he's not as big as Jumbo, but
no.
But in the face, it's amazing how much they look alike. If I saw him on the street, I'd be like, it would get me to do a double take for sure.
Oh, yeah.
With or without the Sharks jersey on.
Many of our picks of the week gravitate to that team and those players. It's amazing. Yep. Joe Thornton, Brent Burns, those two are just incredible. They're hilarious, and I enjoy doing these picks of the week that feature them each time we do it. I never get tired of it.
Yep, it is hilarious. All right, mine is another article that I found on the Hockey News this week, and it talks about the draft lotteries. Of course, we haven't talked much about the teams that are out of the playoffs this week. When we were reviewing the standings, we almost practically ignored all those teams. But the Hockey News hasn't. They did an article talking about NHL draft lottery odds. What's the outlook for teams outside the playoff hunt? So it talks about some various teams. And it doesn't list all the teams that are on the outside looking in, just the ones at the very bottom of the standing. Excuse me. So there's 10 teams that they were focusing on, and obviously, 15 teams aren't going to make the playoffs? So there's 5 teams that didn't make this article. And the number one team that they have as they have is having the best odds of possibly winning the draft lottery is the Arizona Coyotes. And now what they did is they took a look at their current record and then their remaining schedule, and then they looked at the opponents in that remaining schedule and what the average points is for that opponent. So basically trying to figure out how tough of a schedule they've got to finish out the season. And then from all of that, they determine how many points that they think this team is going to end up with at the end of the season.
Okay.
Telling you where they're going to be in the standings overall, right? Well, they've got Arizona and Vancouver tied at the very bottom of the standings with 68 points.
Okay.
So they think Arizona and Vancouver will finish with 68. They think Buffalo will finish with 70. Ottawa with 73. Detroit with 75. Montreal with 75. Edmonton with 76. Chicago with 80. Rangers with 82. And the Islanders with 83. So that is their thinking there. And of course, the draft lottery, essentially the way the draft lottery works is all the teams get put into a quote-unquote hat or bucket or whatever you want to call it. It could be a bingo machine for all we know, with ping pong balls. And the lower in the standings you are, the more quote-unquote bing bong balls that you will have in the thing, meaning the better odds you have at winning the lottery. And what they do is they have a drawing. Well, I'm not exactly sure exactly what goes on with the draft lottery because they don't show the public how they do it, but they do come out with a list of odds of you have this percent. If you finish here in the standings, you have this percent chance of winning the draft lottery, and then next you have a slightly lower chance of winning, and so on and so on and so on, down to the final teams that finish basically right outside the playoffs, who have a minuscule chance of winning the draft lottery. But what they do is ultimately when the lottery is done, they come out with 3 teams that have won the lottery, or a third place, second place, first place in terms of lottery winning. And whoever wins the lottery, that first place spot goes all the way to the top. So if you could finish in 9th place in your division and finish 1 point out of the playoffs, and then turn around, and the odds are long, but you could turn around and win the draft lottery and pick first the following season.
Wow.
And then the second team they pick will pick second, and then the third team they pick will pick third, and then the team that finishes fourth is the lowest team in the standings that did not win the lottery. So let's say Arizona didn't get picked 1, 2, or 3 in the lottery. They would essentially drop to 4th in the draft. And then Vancouver would drop to 5th, and Buffalo 6th, and so on, if this article goes the way they do it. So, and I think if you finish dead last in the NHL, your odds are somewhere in the 18 to 20% chance of winning the draft lottery. So the odds aren't great. And the reason they do that is to prevent teams from tanking. If your chances of winning the draft lottery are only 20%, well, the benefit you would get for winning the lottery or tanking and losing every game, thereby costing you, if fans know that your team is in a tank mode, you're going to stop going to the game, so you're going to have lower ticket sales and so on and so on. So why would you risk having lower ticket sales for a 20% chance of winning the lottery? You wouldn't.
Right.
You want your team on the ice to continue to try to perform. If you win, great. If not, it is what it is. And then take your chances in the lottery at that point. But you still want to try to sell tickets to those end-of-season games. So as we get closer to that draft lottery, and they usually have the lottery right after the regular season ends, they usually announce the team. And as you know, last year, Philadelphia, who did not finish, I don't think they were even in the bottom 5 in the standings. They won the lottery.
Yeah.
And they ultimately chose, not the Flyers. Yeah, it was the Flyers.
It was the Flyers. They won. Yeah. And, New Jersey was first pick, and they picked Nico Hischier.
That's right.
Philadelphia was the second pick.
That's right. You're right.
And they picked the guy out of Brampton, whose name escapes me right now.
Nolan Patrick.
Nolan Patrick.
Yep. So anyway, and the Devils, I don't believe, were in the bottom 5 either in last year's standings. So everybody's speculating on who's going to win the draft lottery, and there's a bunch of fans that are saying that if Edmonton win the lottery, the whole system's rigged to favor Edmonton because they've won it so many times. Well, up until a couple of seasons ago, the lottery was set up a little bit different, where if you did finish dead last, you had like a 60% chance of winning the lottery. Well, they changed it, so that's not the case anymore. And the odds are so low now, it's like 20 or even less than 20 if you finish dead last in the standings of winning the lottery. So they've changed it to the point where it's not worth tanking to have those kind of odds. So it'll be interesting to see.
Yes.
I'm anxious to see the lottery. I wish they would be more transparent with the process and show the public how they come to the winners.
Right.
But they do it behind closed doors, and then they just in a show on NHL Network or whatever, they announce it. They announce who won. And they basically do the 15 down to 1. This is the draft order. Starting with the lowest pick all the way up to pick number 1.
Mm-hmm.
That's how they essentially announce it. So It's usually fun. If you're, it's a small consolation if you're a fan of a team that's not going to make the playoffs to be able to view that lottery and see if your team won. But I'm sure you would rather be watching the Rangers in the playoffs than watching to see if they win the draft lottery, I'm sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, but I will take consolation in watching the draft lottery this year.
Yeah. So yeah, that was my story. It was just pointing
Very
to the
fun.
hockey news, and there's a link to it in the show notes, of course. All right. So we are done. We've somehow managed to turn a slower than normal week into a regular length show.
Yes.
So
very good.
We'll go ahead and end it, and we'll pick it up again next week. And by next week, we should probably know for sure who our playoff teams are going to be.
Oh, I think
willing
so.
to bet.
There may be one race that's not decided, but I think by the time we get to next Wednesday or Thursday, Wayne, we're going to know a whole lot more than we do right now.
Yep, agreed. All right, so let's go ahead and end it for tonight. And until next week, we'll talk to you later.
All right, Wayne.
All right.
Have a good week now.
Yeah, you too. Well, there you have it. If you like the show, please show us your support by subscribing to it using your favorite podcatcher program or app. The Hockey Nuts podcast can be found on major podcast search engines like Apple Podcasts and Google Play Music. Just search for the term The Hockey Nuts in whatever app you use to get podcasts. We can also be found at thehockeywriters.com on their podcast page. Thehockeywriters.com is a great place to get more stories and content about our favorite sport. We love listener involvement, and there are a few ways you can get involved with the show. You can email the show at feedback@thehockeyknuts.com, or you can leave us a voicemail in our mailbox at 919-960-1718. You can also tweet us. I'm at WayneHalley9. Steve is at SBall504man. Also, be sure to visit our website at thehockeyknuts.com. There you can see all of our past episodes archived, and you can listen to the show through your web browser on that site. As always, links and stories that we mention in the show are available in the show notes for this episode. In addition to our website, you can also watch us record the show each week live on YouTube. We generally record on Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday nights, depending on our work schedules. You can find our YouTube channel at thehockeyknuts.com/YouTube. The show is a labor of love for us, but the production of it is not free. To help us offset the cost of producing the show, we've set up various affiliate links on our webpage at thehockeyknuts.com. Affiliate links allow you to help us financially support our podcast without costing you any more money out of pocket. Some of the affiliate relationships we have are with Amazon, HockeyMonkey.com, Ting.com, and SeatGeek.com. If you use any of these services, we'd greatly appreciate it if you used our affiliate link to those sites. Simply go to thehockeyknuts.com and click on the appropriate advertising banner on the right. Your purchase will not cost you anything extra, and a small portion of your purchase will come back to help support the show. Finally, we're also looking for future guests for the show. Obviously, we're not experts on every team and league in hockey, so if you consider yourself more knowledgeable than us on a particular team or league, we definitely want to hear from you. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Hockey Nuts Podcast, and have a great rest of your day.